हेलो एवरीवन, नमस्ते। तो फिर से एक सत्संग करते हैं. लेट्स डू वन मोर सत्संग. Satsang is amazing. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that when the practitioner's mind goes above their Vishuddhi chakra, so throat chakra, when it goes above the fifth center in the subtle body, then the sadhak, the spiritual practitioner, only wants to hear or only wants to talk about spirituality and God, and because that's where the joy is for that person when mind becomes so purified. So that's what we do in satsang. We just enjoy the bliss of spirituality of God. So today let's talk about the importance of practice in one's spiritual life. Sri Ramakrishna used to teach time and time again that one should practice. One example he used to talk about was, let's say someone gets a letter in those times, these days maybe in an SMS message with a shopping list. Buy 5 pounds of sweets, buy some clothes, buy a few fruits. And that person misplaced that letter, and then he was trying hard to find the letter. Once that person found the letter again, so he looked at the list, and then what would he do with that letter? That letter is useless now, because now he knows he has to buy some sweets, some clothes and some fruits. So now he needs to get going on basically buying those items and sending it back to the village from where the letter came. So the use of letter is limited. In the end, the purpose of a letter is to make someone act so that it leads to a fruitful result. Similarly, in the spiritual life, the role of, let's say, reading books, scriptures, all those things is very important, because that leads us to take action, and not any action which is very fruitful and which leads to the ultimate goal of God realization or enlightenment. But we should not get stuck. We should not get stuck on just the first part. We should get going. Once we get the key ideas, action items to do, then we should get into practice. Because without practice, there is going to be no result. And this is basically one of the problem in spiritual life, where people, end up reading different kind of philosophy, different paths, different kind of traditions, never really practice. And that's very interesting. That is definitely very intellectual work and requires a better part of our human faculty. One could be using that time, energy and attention to do harmful things, or just engaging in pure sense enjoyment. But that doesn't lead to spiritual progress. That is pretty much as simple as, in today's day and age, scrolling through Facebook, news stream, or just mindlessly watching many websites like TikTok or many other video websites for hours. This is not a way to achieve a concrete result, and this is very, very hard to achieve. In a spiritual life, it's not that easy. Sometimes people start reading all kind of books, and it gives them a sense of pleasure, and it should, because it's an intellectual pleasure. But also it enforces their ego, because as people read more and more, they have developed this idea of, okay, I know so many things. They start to engage in discussions and arguments, and these things, these habits, are like poison to spiritual life. One time, Sri M, who was actually one of the closest disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, who also authored the book, The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he was arguing about something, and Sri Ramakrishna got really worried, and Sri Ramakrishna made M promise that you would never ever argue again, because Sri Ramakrishna knew that M was very, very learned. He had deep knowledge of modern philosophy at that time, as well as all the other subjects, and he could definitely have gone on the intellectual path and destroyed his spiritual life. And that is why, to protect M, Sri Ramakrishna made him promise to Sri Ramakrishna that I will not argue, and I would rather, Sri Ramakrishna meant to say that M should rather focus on practicing rather than arguing. And this is very, very important. It's very, very difficult to implement in one's spiritual life. And Sri Ramakrishna uses many other examples. For example, in India, people use hemp. They call it in Hindi bhang plant, to get intoxicated or get high or get some kind of euphoria. It's not such a bad. It's a very widely accepted practice in India, definitely in the sadhu community, but also in general population, especially on special occasions like Holi festival and others. People, even younger people, consume that. So what Sri Ramakrishna used to say in a joking way, to drive home the point that if someone just keeps saying bhang, 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 or hemp, 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 one is not going to get high, one is not going to get that euphoria. One has to get going, one has to make arrangements to get, that plant, and then not only that, then one has to prepare it and then eat it. And then one enjoys that euphoria. But bottom line is, Sri Ramakrishna emphasized time and time and time again that one has to practice. Just pure reading, philosophizing is not very helpful. One has to be very analytical. There are two kinds of analysis one can do in a spiritual life. One analysis is trying to understand how everything works. It's like trying to be intellectually like a god. Okay, why this problem is there? Why that trouble is there? How does the world work? How does the universe work? Who created it? That is one kind of analysis. The other kind of analysis is, okay, who am I? Like trying to analyze myself within and try to analyze, my habits, my likes and dislikes, and using that analysis to gain control over our own mind. And Sri Ramakrishna really warned people against the first kind of analysis, where we like to understand everything, which is not possible. We can't become like God in our intellectual understanding. But he really encouraged people to use analysis to gain a control over one's mind. Try to analyze whatever we like a lot, if we are driven by senses, or if we want to hoard money or name and fame, try to analyze it. Like, is it really going to give us permanent happiness? What are the good sides and what are the bad sides of, how much sweets we can eat? Is it going to give us disease? How many places we can visit? Is it sustainable? Can we really do it when we are 85 years old and pretty much need a lot of help to move around? What is going to be our source of happiness at that point? If we are driven by senses, can we really gain that joy from those senses when those senses become loose, when we are not able to use them so much? So this is also a kind of analysis, and using this analysis, we can gain a control of our senses and indirectly gain a control of our mind. And this is very, very helpful. This is very, very helpful. A lot of time people say, I try to meditate and I'm not able to meditate. I'm not able to calm my mind. And they keep really trying, very, very hard, but they don't, get good success. And the reason is, it is like trying to clean a clean a house or clean a floor where someone is already, while we are cleaning the floor, someone is dropping more whatever garbage or trash. So this is the situation. If we don't get rid of our desire, we cannot meditate well, because when we are meditating, we are trying to calm our mind and we are trying to get rid of those thoughts. And as soon as we get rid of one thought, what happens is, some other thought which is related to one of those desires, it pops up in our mind. And then we try to work very hard to get rid of that thought. And as soon as we do that, some other thought pops up. And it goes on and on. So if we really want to have a good meditation, we need to get at the root of it, which is to get rid of the desire. And that's what makes the difference. When someone, you will see different people have different capacity, and some people make tremendous spiritual progress very quickly, and some people take a long time. And the reason there is, some people inherently have very little desire inside them. They are very much free within. So as soon as they start to meditate, they make very good progress because their mind calms and gets very high level of concentration very quickly. On the other hand, other people who have a lot of desire inside their mind, they have a tough time. So this was also highlighted by Sri Ramakrishna, that everyone has different capacity, and because everyone has different capacity, everyone should not aim for just one path or just one level of success, and should not get frustrated. Someone will make quick progress, some people will take longer time, but everyone should make that effort. So that was about practice. One thing I wanted to talk about is the truth of, the importance of the truth or truthfulness in spiritual life. Sri Ramakrishna said that being truthful is basically the most important spiritual practice in this yuga, in this era of Kali Yuga. One can become enlightened just by being truthful. What being truthful means? Being truthful means, so this Visuddhi chakra, like this throat chakra here, fifth chakra, that chakra doesn't open until one is absolutely truthful. And if someone is very truthful, one's mind naturally floats above the Visuddhi chakra, the fifth chakra. And from there, fifth center, and from there, getting enlightened or having God relation is not very far. One is very close. And this has been emphasized by many saints, throughout the ages. In one of the dohas, Tulsidas, the great saint Tulsidas, the writer of Ramcharitmanas, he says that if one is truthful, and if one considers all the women except one's wife as one's mother, then that person will realize Ram, that person will realize God. And if that doesn't happen, then Tulsi Das is a liar. So that's a pretty big thing. He's taking his whole existence on that fact, and he's not just fooling around. He's basing it on the science of spirituality, which is, if someone is truly truthful, one is already above that fifth center, above the Visuddhi chakra. And if someone is basically treating every woman as mother except one's wife, that means one has almost full control over one's senses. Then it's pretty close. Then the probability of one getting enlightened is probably more than 80%, almost 90% plus. One just has to try. So Tulsidas is being pretty smart there. And that same truthfulness has been preached by most of the saints. But what Sri Ramakrishna has done, that Sri Ramakrishna has demonstrated it. He not only advised his disciples and other people, but he demonstrated the extreme of truthfulness. One of the things that attracted me to Sri Ramakrishna was his truthfulness. I have never come across a modern human, I would say in last 500 years at least, or last 1,000 years, or I would say in last 2,000 years, a human who has practiced truthfulness to that extent. It's mind-blowing, what Sri Ramakrishna, has practiced in terms of truthfulness. So one time, he was visiting a neighboring garden which was next to the temple, Dakshineshwar temple, where he used to stay. And he had some stomach problem. And the owner of the garden, who was the host of Sri Ramakrishna when he was visiting there, suggested to him that you should eat some opium. We are talking about 150 years ago. That might, eating a little bit of opium might actually help you with your stomach condition. So he said, okay. And when he started to leave Sri Ramakrishna after some time for his temple residence, I think someone I think one of his attendants or someone, one of that host attendant, he tied a little bit of opium in his in a knot to his cloth. And as Sri Ramakrishna started to walk towards the temple, he almost forgot the way, and he almost fell into the river Ganges. I think because he probably, I don't remember right now exact story, but I think he probably had not asked, or maybe he had tied the opium without telling him, or something like that. And he was not able to understand what happened, like why he forgot the way, why Sri Ramakrishna forgot the way, and why he was almost going to drown into the river. But somehow he managed to go back to the, that garden house and return that opium, and then he became normal again, So the truthfulness, then he went back normally to his temple residence. So what it means is, like, his level of truthfulness was so deep down in his consciousness that it did not allow him to do something which is untruthful. It was impossible for him to utter a word which was not true. It is mind-blowing. And this example that I gave, it's just one of those many examples. People get the real idea of his truthfulness when one reads through, his life. Like when I started reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, I was just wonderstruck by the truthfulness of this person. I had just never come across, anything like that in my entire life. And it is something to be inspired by, and one does get inspired. But it's just reading and observing his life makes one inspired, to be truthful. I mean, just giving someone instruction and lecture, it doesn't work that much. Like telling someone, hey, be truthful, don't tell lies, it doesn't work that much. But when someone watches a real living person living a life of truth, that has real effect. And that is so essential, for success in spiritual life. I mean, without having the foundation of truthfulness, it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to get enlightened. I mean, other way to think about this is, if being truthful is so essential, according to Tulsidas or Sri Ramakrishna, to get enlightened, it's so easy. If it's so easy to get enlightened, if one is truthful, if you just reverse that equation, it's almost impossible to get. I can say, not almost, I mean, I will go so far as to say that it is impossible. It's impossible, to get enlightened, to realize God without being almost absolutely truthful. It's not possible. And why are we not able to be truthful? I mean, in the end, it goes back to our desires. Why people are not telling the truth? Because of some fear, mostly some fear, that makes people say untruth. And that fear comes from desire, people want to be liked, so people tell lies about relationships. People want things, people want promotion, people want money, so people say lies about that, So most of the time, if we really deeply analyze, this kind of analysis, Sri Ramakrishna really encouraged, because this kind of analysis helps us to look within our own mind, in our own thinking, and get at the root of the problem, why our minds are distracted. So if we look at the problem of lying or not being truthful, it's always in desire. It's almost always in desire. And so by being truthful, essentially, we are cutting the root of the desire. So that's why all these things, being truthful, getting rid of desire, these things are linked to each other. So if we start working at one of them, we won't be successful until we cut every root. And that's why we should start somewhere. And because being truthful is something that we are fully aware of, right? I mean, we don't know. There are so many hidden desires in our mind that we are not even, aware of. But we are always aware of whether we are being truthful or not, right? So if we try to be truthful as much as we could, and once we start doing it, once we start being truthful or making an effort to be truthful, we will very soon realize that we need to make changes in our life. We need to make changes in our relationships, the way we live our life, the priorities of life. And that leads to changes in the desired, deeply rooted desires within our mind. And that, does the trick. So that's why, being truthful is so important in spiritual life. And I admire Sri Ramakrishna so much. I'll be very curious if people have other examples of, in modern times, of someone who has displayed truthfulness. Not just preaching truthfulness is one thing, but that really does not stick. Someone who has to live it, to live it to a degree which is almost humanly impossible. That is that is what we need, as humans. We need that example, that high level of example, to follow. All right. So that was Sri Ramakrishna and his truthfulness. So I will today stop here. And, I really enjoyed talking about truthfulness. Truthfulness is something which is, there's something pure about it, It just makes us feel good. Just hearing the word truth so many times makes us feel good. And that's the beauty of it. There's some hidden beauty, in being truthful or truthfulness. It gives us power. We don't understand. There's so much power in the truth. What is truth? Someone will say, okay, what is truth? And this is my thinking. I think truth is what appeals to a purified heart. If someone is really pure in heart, a truth will appeal to that person, that heart. And if someone has, not a very pure heart and mind, truth will not appeal to that person. So truth is very powerful. If we are being very truthful, believe me, it gives us very much power. It makes us powerful, not only spiritually, but also in material life. So being truthful is amazing. And that's why, I'm so much inspired by Sri Ramakrishna, because one of his key display, not just the teaching, but key display, him basing his life on truth and truthfulness. So I'll stop here today. I hope you all are doing well, and we'll talk again soon. I really love you all, and take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.